folks. Anyone see the State of the Union speech the other night? State of the Union. Oh, some of you are into masochistic behavior. I'm a way for everyone to admit it, all in one room. That's nice. It's interesting about Barack Obama. He spent a whole year campaigning around the country, telling us who he really wasn't. And in 1 hour inaugural speech, he told us who he really was, didn't he? We really saw what we got. Now, as we kind of look back at everything that's happened in the last year, I can tell you this. Barack Obama will not escape history's judgment. It'll come. It'll come. But we don't get to escape history's judgment as we go forward either, do we? We'll get judged as well. And the reason I bring that up is as we go through, there's a lot of talk internally about the party and how we're going to go forward and all this self-examination and all of that. And I always believe that you should learn from elections and election cycles, but that you should move on. Frankly, I don't spend a lot of my time sitting around grousing about what's happened. I like to learn and then go forward. I don't have to, not only do I not spend a lot of time doing it, I don't waste a lot of time doing it. Because there's too much at stake. There's too much at stake in this country. I talked about that, I did Mark Belling's show yesterday and Jay's this morning, and I had one caller that got me thinking about this, because it was kind of the hand-wringing and all the other kind of stuff, and I finally, a perfectly good guy, I'm sure, but I finally said, you know what? We got too much to look forward to. We got too much to save in this country to spend our time whining. That's not what this party's about. And one of the things I remember best about what Paul said during the campaign is that this is the only country that was founded on an idea. And how important a concept that is right now. Because we, especially in light of what Barack Obama has said in his record, this is about ideas. And as a party, and as a movement, and as conservatives, we're going to get judged as we go forward on ideas and who lays them out for the public. It's that simple. That's how we're going to get judged. In a way, that's much of what the governor just got done saying. And I'll tell you what, I feel optimistic about the future, but one of the biggest reasons I feel optimistic about the future is this guy sitting right here. All right. And I'll say this to you. I know where I'm putting my bets down. I'm putting my bets down on a guy who's a great American. He's a leader. He's a husband. He's a father. He's a taxpayer. And lucky for us, he's from right down the road. Congressman Paul Ryan.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. You guys are great. Oh. Hey, I'll tell you, David Karst, I gotta tell you, my first time at one of these in getting part of Milwaukee County, the first district in 2002, there were about 7 tables here, and all I remember was Art and Degner kept yelling at me. Look at what you have helped build. David Karst, thank you very much for all your dedication to making this a thriving county park. And I also want to say do not forget these races on Tuesday. These fine women judges have earned and deserve our support. It's not enough that you just get out and vote. Don't forget. Call, email your friends, your relatives, get them out to vote. These February elections are low turnout elections. So the voters who go for their candidate, that's who wins. Don't forget. I want to say one other thing. Thank you. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your time, your toll, your treasure. Thank you for helping us. It was an honor. I really look back at kind of the whirlwind of 88 days of a presidential campaign as a great honor, a duty that it was a pleasure to fulfill. And the reason I felt so good about it is because I was in part representing the people I spent my life growing up with, working with, serving, you, my friends, and I am so honored to have had that chance to do it because of your prayers and your well-wishing, and I just simply want to say thank you very much. I really appreciate it. You know, it is really good to be home. I gotta tell you that. I just got off a plane from Washington and pretty much just came over here with a pit stop downtown. And coming here and having a Miller Lite and a fish fry at Serb Hall feels really good. You know, as you probably know, I'm an Irish guy. I'm from Janesville. I'm fifth generation Janesville. My family basically came from Ireland when the potatoes stopped growing. They got to Boston, worked the railroads until they had enough money to buy a farm. That so happened to be Janesville, Wisconsin, where a lot of other Irish were. It was summer. And they looked around and they said, this looks just like Ireland. We're going to buy a farm right here. And then came winter. And that's all they had. They were stuck with it, and we've been making a go of it ever since. But it reminds me of just an old family Irish story. I've got an uncle. I'm the youngest in my generation. And so I have an uncle who's the youngest in his generation. And his older brothers fought in World War II. And he didn't because he was too young. But not young enough to go to a pub. And James is a very Irish town. We got a lot, Irish bars there. And so every day he'd go to a pub after work. Ryan Inc. is a earth-moving company that my cousins run now. And on behalf of his brothers, they'd always say, every day, go have a beer with me, as long as I can't make it. So he'd go to the pub, downtown Janesville, place is still there, and he'd have 3 beers. And he'd put those 3 beers and knock them down, and he did this every day. Finally, the bartender came up to him and said, why are you drinking these 3 beers? That's kind of strange. What's the story with that? He said, oh, it's because of my brothers. They're at war right now. They're fighting. I'm here drinking on their behalf. And so, a few weeks later, after doing this every day, he comes in and he orders 2 beers. And he's sitting there drinking 2 beers. And one of the patrons who'd been watching him come in and drink the 3 all those times came up to him and said, man, I'm really sorry to hear about your brother. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, I see that you're drinking 2 beers. You must have lost one of them in war. He said, no, I gave him drinking beer for Lent. That's a Ryan Irish family show. Since Lent started Wednesday, and we're in the Lenten season, you know what I'm going to give up for Lent? I'm going to give up despair. And because you know what you do when you lose something? And when it doesn't always go your way, when you get knocked down, what do? You get back up. You dust yourself off. You get back at it. And so, what do we have to look forward to? Why should we give up despair? I can't tell you how many times just over here at the bar talking to people saying, I cried for 3 weeks. I couldn't get out of bed for 2 days. I can't believe this. This is so horrible. I was telling Jana the other day, I said everywhere I go, from the airport or wherever, people are saying this to me. pouring all their frustrations onto me. I said, who do I get to pour out mine onto? She said, it ain't me. And I basically got sick of it. And when you really look at the whole scheme of things, here is where we stand. Look at this country. We've had challenges. We've had challenges from the left in this country. We know who we are, we know what we believe in. I was just with Reince the other night in Washington. This election, they got all the numbers back. The election was settled by 333,000 votes spread across 4 states. New Hampshire, Virginia, Ohio, and Florida. President Obama's moving around the country as if he's got some great mandate. He gave his inauguration speech, and yeah, I had a front row seat at that one, and then I had a front row seat at the other one the other day on Monday, or Tuesday, the inauguration speech. And what he basically said in that speech is, I'm a liberal, I'm going to govern like a liberal, I won the election and so there. Okay, fine. All the pretext is gone. We understand this. And what's really clear to us is that his goal in his presidency, which is really the permanent campaign presidency, there never really seems to come a time when he actually sits down and governs and works across the aisle to get things done. He's permanent campaign. Gives the State of the Union, hits the road for 3 days to campaign. And the reason we have this sort of permanent campaign presidency is because he is bound and determined to make sure that the last 2 years of his administration look just like the first 2 years of his administration. Remember what happened then? That's when Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid were in charge. Here's the problem. Right now, Nancy Pelosi's not in charge. House Republicans are in charge of the House of Representatives. And so that's what stands between his goal of having total control of government. Now, why am I optimistic? Here's why I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic because we have trailblazers out there that are showing better ideas. We've got this fantastic governor. Scott Walker's so good, he got elected twice to his first term. Look at these state legislators. Look at Glenn and Mary and Alberta and Leah and all these state senators and all these state representatives. They're going to show what happens when you take our founding principles and apply them to the problems of the day to fix our problems. You are seeing this big divide between blue states, red states. You are seeing a huge divide between equality of opportunity or the left agenda of equality of outcome. You're seeing ideas at practice, at play, in these states. And Scott's right. We have a great chance here in the state to showcase great ideas. Education reform, economic reform, all of these things. What's our fight at the federal level? If there's any value to be had for having a House Republican majority, it is that we are going to get this spending thing under control, whether he's going to be helping us or not. That is the value we have that we can add. We see it as our civic duty, as our obligation to our fellow citizens and to our kids to make sure that we don't have a debt crisis in this country. To make sure that we get this deficit and debt under control. And it's very clear to us that the president really doesn't want to cut spending. In fact, it's so strange to me that he doesn't even want to acknowledge we have a spending problem. You know, he said in his speech the other day that we've already achieved $2.5 trillion of deficit reduction. That was kind of a knee slapper, I thought, but it's one way of looking at the world that happened in the last 4 years without recording any of the spending and the deficit increase that occurred. It's a gross figure. It doesn't count stimulus or tax holidays or the massive spending increases on government spending or unemployment extensions or disaster bills. So you see what the president is trying to do is sweep under the rug the fact that we literally are on the same path that Europe has been on. Here's the problem. If we don't wake up and face up to these realities, we will have the same kind of results that Europe is experiencing. What happens when you have a debt crisis? Your interest rates shoot up. Your creditors, which in our case is either the Federal Reserve or foreign governments, They keep demanding more money to lend you their money. And when you pay the piper like they are in Europe, you cut everybody. Everybody in the safety net. People, after they retire, have their pensions and their retirement benefits cut. People who are on the bottom of the economic ladder trying to catch up can't get going. The economy goes into recession. The unemployment rate in Greece and in Spain is 50% for young people. These are the things that happen to countries that have debt crises, to countries that live beyond their means, that mortgage their children's future and their grandchildren's future. And these are the things that if we have any value of standing for our convictions, of fighting for what we believe in, we will make sure it doesn't happen under this president's watch. Now, what else do we have to do? We have got to go to everybody in this country, every nook and cranny of this country, every inner city neighborhood, every poor rural community, every immigrant neighborhood, to show that the American idea is still within your reach. And what is the American idea? Because that too is in doubt. A lot of people are questioning and concerning. Is this something I've heard of, but is it something that is ever within my reach? The American idea is no matter who you are, no matter what circumstance you were born into or wherever you came from, the only thing limiting you of reaching your potential is your own God-given effort and talent. Your own God-given talent, your own effort. That's the American idea. Just like Scott and these courageous legislators, we're going to be offering these same kinds of things. Here's how we would do things differently. Here's how we would unleash an energy boom in this country. Here's how we would do education reform by giving the states the ability to do the kind of voucher that they need to do. Here's how we will balance the budget. By the way, Scott's releasing their budget next week. I'll introduce ours next month, and we will show you specifically, here's how you balance the budget and pay off our national debt. We're going to be specific. We're going to show the country how you get these done. Here's how you reform the tax code. Here's how you end crony capitalism. Here's how you stop the government from picking winners and losers. Here is how you unleash the creativity and the genius of the American person, of the worker. Here's how you get America back on track. Here's how you keep our national defense, the men and women in the military, strong and supported. Here is how you take the challenges that we're facing in this country. You apply the principles that founded this country: liberty, freedom, free enterprise, self-determination, to bring the solutions that everybody in America is so hurting for. I'll finish with what Schimming said. America is an idea. Literally. It's the only country founded on an idea. It's really simple. And it's really clear the president is testing this thesis. Our rights come from nature and nature's God, not from government. They're ours before government. We own them. We possess them as people. He's offering a different thesis. It's one where the government grants us new rights. The government gives us new rights, like health care. Guess what? If the government now is in the position to be granting and giving us rights, guess who gets to decide how, if, where, when we exercise these rights? The government. The government's now telling us how we exercise our religious freedoms through the healthcare law. This thesis does not work. It's proven to fail time and again across the world. And here in America, where we still have the affinity for the American idea, where we still have the cultural antibodies that strive for equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome run by government, we will get this back. I'm an eternal optimist. I'm Irish, I can't help it. But I'm going to tell you, getting back up, dusting ourselves off, getting back to work, talking to those Americans who just haven't heard the message thoroughly enough, showing the reforms, having the courage of our convictions, which we have shown right here in Wisconsin, and we will get it back. So you got to be patient, you got to be prudent, you can't despair. You got to get back on it. You're here. It proves that you know this. Let's just make sure that the rest of the people in our state and country do as well. Thank you, everybody, and God bless.